All right. Thanks for joining us here on the Goalkeepers podcast brought to you by the United Goalkeeping Alliance. And today we have Coach Bob Pipech from Dominate the 18. Coach, tell us a little bit about where you are, what's Dominate the 18, and what is it that you do?
Hey, Coach Art, thanks for having me on. Founder and director of Dominate the 18 Goalkeeper and Soccer Training. Changed the name about a year ago. Used to be Pipech Elite Soccer Training. So, our major focus is on goalkeeper training, but we also offer elite and high level, overall soccer training for outfield players. So, it's been a fantastic summer so far. We just got done about a week and a half ago with our summer goalkeeping camp, and there were 65 participants for that. So we did have to shut registration down, unfortunately, because it's more important for us that we have an excellent goalkeeper to staff ratio. We don't want to just have numbers high and not have the players get the individual attention they need. So we had to close that one down, but we had a fantastic group for that. It was an awesome camp, a lot of fun. And then we have some camps coming up in July. In about 2 weeks, we have our high school ready camp. We're also starting a goalkeeping camp for younger player ages 6 to 8 because they need those important foundations, and if they learn the things that the correct techniques and the basics of the position very early on, it's going to increase their confidence. They're going to have more fun, and it's just a win-win all the way around. So and then in August we have our camp for outfield players. Second week of August, our summer technical camp, so we're looking forward to that, and just a lot of things happening, and playing the winter training, and it's just a lot of things that, as with your stuff, it's constantly, every day there's planning for something, and that's the fun part. It's fun to keep working on these different ways to develop players and to help players be the best they can be.
And that's a vast number of players that are getting training, right?
Hmm.
So because you mentioned, you're talking about like 6 and 8 year olds, and then obviously the high school readiness camp coming up. And we'll make sure to let the people know where to contact you for that and how to get a hold of Dominate the 18. But why is it important to set the foundation at like 6 and 8 for maybe not necessarily what we consider pigeonholing somebody to be a goalkeeper, more just giving them the skills and the confidence that in a situation where they're in a good team with a good coach that is rotating them, that they're comfortable getting in net. Why is that important for like a 6 and 8 year old?
Yeah, you kind of hit on some of those things in the question. It's so many factors on why it's so important. The first and probably the most important reason, it makes the game more fun. And the reason it makes the game more fun for the goalkeeper is because they now have a better idea about the position and what they're doing and what the expectations, what the rules are. So that's going to make the game more fun. I don't know if you ever done, well, we all have. We've all done something where maybe we're trying some new activity, and it might be fun, but sometimes it gets a little frustrating when you don't know the different rules and aspects of the activity. And the same thing is true of goalkeeping. Now, I see a lot of coaches out there that are very understanding of their goalkeepers when they throw them out there. If they have no experience, they say, okay, we'll have fun, do a good job for us. And then sometimes I unfortunately witness some situations where the coach is a little unhappy with the goalkeeper. Like, oh, Julia, what are you doing? What are you doing? Well, you can't say that, coach, because they don't have any experience in the position. They need that guidance. They need that instruction. They need that support. And that's where that hungry youngsters, we call it, the 6 to 8 year old goalkeeping camp, is so critical. And now they're learning the proper foundations at such an early age. Sometimes we get goalkeepers and it's their first session at age 13 or 14. And unfortunately, developed at that point a lot of bad habits. And they're very, very difficult to correct. And it's not, we correct them, but it takes time. It takes time. And it also takes the work of the goalkeeper outside of the training sessions to also to correct those things. So it's really, really important that goalkeepers are, keepers who are interested about the position are learning the proper techniques and proper rules. And again, it just makes the game more fun. It makes their team more successful. And it just lays such a fantastic foundation for their future. And we're not saying if they do the camp or they get training that you have to be a goalkeeper, because conversely with that too, let's say you become a awesome center back or a great, outside defender. That's going to help with their overall understanding of the game. So it just like vice versa, we want goalkeepers to also play the field at young ages as well. So it's so many factors at why it's important for a young goalkeeper to learn the proper techniques. And again, you don't want to make it anything that's burdensome, tiring, too exhausting. But by getting that training in, it's a win-win all around.
Yeah, and I think for me, what resonates the most is taking the pressure out of it, taking the pressure out, releasing the pressure, taking the pressure out, and also um, right away giving them a good, positive beginning to that position versus, getting put in goal and then, the coach gets upset, the team gets upset. Now the players are upset. So now that beginning, maybe not so positive, and now you're losing a goalkeeper versus potentially gaining one or keeping one long term, right? And yeah, and I think the confidence piece is so important. um I would almost like it to, like, um when somebody, who's a little bit older, right, like, goes out and takes up a brand new activity, right? Like, I know I like kickboxing and just boxing. It may not be fun to go get shellacked. If I if I go pick a fight, it's not gonna be fun, right? But if I now train, if I get a trainer, and I now start easing myself into that, now learning at least the basics, when I am in that situation, I won't necessarily feel completely out of water. So no, that's a great thing that you're doing for young goalkeepers. Now, from a club standpoint, a club coach, club trainer, what are some of the things that maybe you see recently um, that clubs are doing better to help goalkeepers? I know certain clubs are doing more than others, and trying different things and whatnot. But what are some of the things that you've noticed clubs are doing that perhaps help goalkeepers, in that 12 to 15 range, make that leap to you know obviously be a strong player when it counts, and in high school and above.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I see clubs doing is really contacting me. And when I say contacting me, that could be any credible goalkeeping coach, any dedicated and credible has the experienced goalkeeping coach to work with their goalkeepers, because and every club situation is a little bit different. So every club's finances are a little bit different. Sometimes smaller clubs don't have the luxury, unfortunately, of bringing you know a really experienced and dedicated goalkeeper coach in. But so they're doing whatever they can. But contacting me is a big help, and contacting other credible coaches, because you're getting in those players that specific training they need. You're increasing their confidence. You're having good foundations, or you're correcting those bad habits sometimes that develop over time. And just so we talked about the younger goalkeepers, when their confidence is increased, it's a win-win for everybody. I mean, the mental side and the confidence is probably the biggest aspect. When they have that confidence and they've been there before in training, and they're doing the right things. They see the fruits of their labor and fruits of their labor, so to speak, on the training field. It just pays dividends all around. So that's probably the biggest thing is clubs are now reaching out whenever they can to bring somebody in to help the goalkeepers be successful. I think the mental side, that's one thing we actually talked about at our camps. We actually had somebody come in and talk about mental health for about 25 minutes with the players. And, if clubs can do that, I've seen a couple clubs start to address mental health as well, not just for the goalkeepers, but for all their players. I think those two things have really helped, in the last year or so, help develop goalkeepers within clubs.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think there's different levels to the different things coaches can offer, right? And it's not a knock on any coach or
Yes.
any individual, right? That's just the way it is, because some people specialize in certain things and others specialize in others. So you're right. The clubs are starting to do their due diligence in trying to find qualified, experienced goalkeeper coaches and trainers in order to come in and make an impact, whether it's an impact on the team or an impact on the whole group of goalkeepers. But I think that's the most important thing a club can do, is try to align themselves and try to find those individuals that specialize in goalkeeping versus simply, um, finding somebody who's going to hit a ball, right?
Yep.
And I don't say that in a bad way, but obviously, like you mentioned, and what we do with the alliance, goalkeeping has the different pillars and the different aspects to it. You talk about the social piece, the psychological piece, the technical, physical piece. So there's all these little pieces that have to be put together, and it has to be put together by the right person. So with that in mind, talk to us a little bit about your topic this month, what you are going to be talking about, discussing. Um, Give us a little taste.
Sure. So the topic on July 10th is the goalkeeping warm up, and we're talking more specifically about like the pregame warm up. So we're going to go into like why the warm up is so important. The biggest thing for the goalkeeper warm up is that the goalkeeper is getting mentally and physically ready for the match. And so we're going to talk about how they get themselves mentally ready, factors that can influence the warm up or affect the warm up, whether that be positive or negative. And then we're going to even go into pretty much a sample goalkeeping warm-up and show players of all ages what they should be doing before the match. Now, that's going to vary, obviously, based on the level of the team, the level of the competition, the age of the player. And another thing we'll talk about as well is that no two warm-ups should be identical, because you have to make the warm-up meet your needs, whether that as a goalkeeper, as a team, for the coach, more so for the goalkeeper, but you have to have that warm up meet your needs. So why I'm going to give them a very good structure, and I think that would be highly beneficial for the players to follow my warm up that I lay out for them. I don't want them to take it verbatim and just do it, right? They need to make it their own. So there's a little bit of a taste, and there's so many components to that. But yeah, it's a warm up is such a critical piece, and it's for the goalkeeper to get them physically and mentally ready for the match.
Yeah, and I think what we want to do here, and what we want to do, or what we're trying to do, is trying to get away from how the goalkeeper gets ignored sometimes.
Yes.
And because it's very easy to say, even say you're lucky you have two goalkeepers, it's very easy to say, okay, you guys do this, you two go warm up. I mean, that's as a coach, right? From a time perspective, from a responsibility perspective, from a team perspective, that may be the easiest thing I can do. Hey, you two, go, right? From a goalkeeper perspective, I'm not doing my due diligence there if I'm just sending them to warm up. So for a goalkeeper, say, let's talk U14 and above, somebody who's a little bit older, how important is it for them to understand that they can take the lead and be responsible for their own warm-up if they choose to be?
Yeah, it's critical. And you hit the nail on the head there. And we talk about in the warm-up things to avoid. And that's, kind of one of the things. And when we say that, eventually we do want players as a coach. And that's kind of with everything, actually, like even though we're the leaders as a coach, we want to find those players and people, and we want the team to be their team. So we'd like a lot of things, or most things, to be, team driven. And the same thing is true with the goalkeepers. Eventually you want to get to the point, you hit the perfect age, about 13, 14 years old, where you can say, okay, you two go off your own, but you don't mean go off on your own, do whatever. You mean go off and do an awesome job warming up. And, you have to develop that trust with the goalkeepers, and you have to take some time to do the warm up with them and show them what the things they need to be doing, and also develop a plan with them. So you take your goalkeepers in a training session, you show them the warm up, and then you have those conversations with them. Talk about the things they need to do to prepare for the match. Talk about the mental side, and then you could also get their input. What things do they feel are beneficial or can help them more effectively get ready for the match? So yeah, definitely at age 13, 14, that's kind of the age where we love if especially if you're the only coach, if you're the only club coach, that would be the perfect age where you can say, and you could phrase a little bit different, but hey guys, go off on your own, and know that they're going to do what they need to do to get themselves ready for the match. And then maybe the next step is if you have two coaches, maybe you have a coach then who can take the goalkeepers. And that's probably the more ideal situation is when you have that coach, even though, and that being said, let's say we're talking about age 14, it's still player driven, right? But the coach is there to support them, to maybe put a little more emphasis on some things or a little more intensity. But, it's ideal situation if a coach can go with them. Obviously, that's true in college. You have that goalkeeping coach who go over and get the goalkeepers warmed up. But again, we're talking about different size of clubs, finances, level of competition. All those things come into play. But yeah, absolutely. Eventually, we do want it to be a situation where the players are doing that warm up on their own, and they have a warm up they do regularly that works for them. It's driven through the players.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the one thing that the only thing that gets lost in translation sometimes is the fact that when we say it's player driven or players should take responsibility. Yes, it's player driven, and yes, players should take responsibility, but that doesn't absolve coaches of what our job ultimately
Absolutely.
is. So that's where the problem sometimes lies, where whether it's and I'll get away from goalkeepers for 2 seconds, but if I roll the ball out and say, all right, show up and play, that doesn't necessarily mean I can now turn my back and ignore the situation. I have to take that as an opportunity. If I'm coaching this, I have to take that as an opportunity to coach. Maybe not the same way I would if we were doing a different exercise, but there's still some coaching involved. Same thing with the goalkeeper, where, and you're totally right, where a lot of things are taken. And I don't know if it's a culture thing or what, but a lot of times when we're teaching kids or when we're coaching kids, they take things verbatim and they don't flinch off of what we ask them to do. And it does become frustrating because we want them to be creative. We want them to be proactive. We want them to take the lead, but they haven't been taught that. So how do we get them there? How do we teach them that?
Yeah, it takes time, it takes experience, and it takes practice. Like you said, I mean, the way I coach is I'm very hands on. Like I have to be involved, and I'm a perfectionist. But you have to find those balances of when the coach needs to take the lead and when the coach needs to give away. I don't say give away, but when the coach can allow the players to take that lead, and it's just such a delicate balance. And I have we're doing a coaching clinic at Dominate D18 for a local club, and one of the things we're talking about is that raise your hand if you ever had the perfect session. And if somebody raised their hand, they're going to be grilled a little bit, right? None of us have, no matter how good your session is, none of us have ever had the perfect session, because maybe there's something where, maybe I could have gave a little bit more responsibility to the players there. Maybe I could have been a little bit more questioning to the player there in terms of making them give me the answer versus me telling them the answer, right? Or maybe I provided the solution too quickly, right? Maybe they could have figured out that solution on their own. Or maybe, certain players weren't engaged. So it just takes time. It takes, practice. It takes having those conversations. In my opinion, coaching is one of the hardest jobs. Coaching and teaching they're kind of hand in hand. They're one of the hardest jobs. And, it's probably it is the best job in my opinion. It's the best job. It's the best job to coach, but it's not an easy job. Like, you should be driving to the field. I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but you should be driving to the field, like thinking about the session in your head. Hopefully you have the session planned out on a piece of paper, right? You're managing so many different aspects during the session. And then after the session, you're reflecting, right? And then the next session, hopefully you're seeing, what things they retained and built and, now have further developed from the previous session. And the same thing is true with that player responsibility piece that you mentioned. It takes time. It takes having those conversations with players. Age is a factor, but, it's not, there's so many factors. Sometimes you have a 10-year-old who could really take the lead, which is awesome to see, right? You have a 10-year-old who they could take the lead and be that leader with another goalkeeper, so to speak. And sometimes, there's that maturity piece. Like sometimes it takes up to 14, 15 years old, and hopefully it's somewhere in between there. So there's so many different factors, but it takes, practice, time, having those conversations with players, and then understanding your team, because different things work for different kids. We can't talk to every single kid the same way. There's so many different approaches we have to take, and we have to take the approach as a coach that we find that works best for that player to be most effective. Otherwise, we're losing effectiveness, right? Like if my team is a little bit more laid back and they're more of a you know, they're more like a relaxed type, it doesn't really do any good for that coach or me to come in and start screaming and, things to do, right? That's not the approach. They like it, more laid back and more, fun. Not to say they're not working hard, but they like more of that, like a little bit of a, jovial approach or more
Yeah.
relaxed approach. So you have to find the approach that works for your players and for your goalkeepers, and all that kind of combined is the way we can allow players over time to take more of that responsibility.
Yeah, and that, my friends, is coaching. I hope you paid attention and took notes, because that was good, man. So um, you know, we always ask this question, right? The United Goalkeeping Alliance. Why did you join? Why are you a member? Why should anybody join? Why should any coach join?
Yeah, it's a great thing for goalkeepers who want to take their game to new heights. That's, I think, the biggest thing in my opinion. I remember it was about like a year and a half ago. I think I saw online that Eric was starting up, and I'm like, oh, that looks pretty cool, and I'd like to be a part of that. And he's like, well, yeah, let's go, man. Like, come join us, um, and it's just a great platform. There's so many fantastic coaches. Some of the best coaches in the United States and even beyond are a member of the United Goalkeeping Alliance, coaching all different levels. So we have coaches who are coaching at overseas, even a little bit on the international level. We have coaches who are coaching on the pro level. We have coaches who are coaching collegiately. And then obviously, a lot of coaches still, even those coaches who are coaching collegiately, usually keep their foot in the club game. We have coaches, coaching the club game at various levels from, the tots, so to speak, are ages 3 and 4 up to 19 and 23. So when players and organizations are joining the Goalkeeping Alliance, they're able to get information from some of the best in the business, and that information that they take from the sessions, it's going to enhance their game tremendously. And I'll be just like anything else. The Alliance is not for everybody. And what I mean by that is, if you're not interested in becoming a better goalkeeper, then the Alliance is not for you, right? Like, I mean, just simple as that.
Simple.
Like maybe you are, playing your goalkeeper right now and you enjoy the sport, but you're a little bit hesitant in some areas, and then maybe the Alliance isn't for you. But if you're a goalkeeper or a club or academy who wants their goalkeepers to take their games to new heights, because we talk about in our these monthly meetings that we have for the players, we talk about so many aspects of the position, both on and off the field, to help them, use that phrase, but take their games to new heights and be the absolute best goalkeeper they can be. So it's a great thing. The information players gain from this, they could use in so many facets of their game, both on and off the field. And then also the connections. I think we've talked about before, and we talked about a little bit already, or I talked about it. Like, we have coaches in the Alliance who are on so many different levels, and that could open up doors for so many goalkeepers. I think that's one of the biggest things too, is the connections and the relationships that you can develop. It could pay dividends for you, whether that be collegiately or professionally. Because again, it's a lot of anything you do is about making those positive connections, and the same thing's true with the Alliance.
Yeah, and I think then, especially for the kids, the networking piece gets overlooked a little bit. I think we still have to teach those kids, our goalkeepers, how to make use of the networking piece. And when you have certain coaches in front of you, that's the time to ask questions, because at least for me, I know that for me, I don't necessarily have access to uh, people at certain levels on a regular basis. So when I do have them in front of me, that's the time where I have the opportunity to ask those questions, um, and just see what their thoughts are on something that maybe it was on the back of my mind. So, we'll certainly keep working on that and making sure that the kids and the players do have access to all those coaches. Um,
Yeah, just
but
to add to that, just coach or players, just so you know, like the coaches, they love the questions at the end. Like so when the coaches during the presentations at the end say, "Do you guys have any questions?" Like we really mean all of us, and I know that I can speak for everybody. I know that for a fact. We really do mean, "Do you have any questions?" Because we want to help you most effectively, and that's again, that's why do we coach? That's one of the reasons. That's we love to help players in the ways that are best suited for them. So you might have a question or be thinking about something that you just you just were uncomfortable asking previously, or maybe for every reason. And like you said, Coach Art, like these coaches are so knowledgeable and have a plethora of experience. They could definitely give you a perspective that will help you, whether that be in the mental, social, whatever aspect it may be. Just regular, physically in terms of the goalkeeping, technical side. So many different ways. We will definitely help you and give you an answer that will meet your needs. So.
and yeah, and to be honest, we didn't even touch on the mental part of the warm up. So if you want to watch that, then you're gonna have to watch Coach Bob's presentation and learn more about that. Because even the mental piece, I won't say even the mental piece is extremely important, right? How you approach the game, how you approach your warm up, and what are those things that you're putting in your mind before the game and whatnot. So, Coach, if I want to get a hold of you, if I want to join your camp, how do I get a hold of you? Where can I follow you on social media?
Yeah, so we're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you just type Dominate the 18 soccer training or Dominate the 18 goalkeeper and soccer training, it should come right up on a regular Google search. But anybody could always get in contact with me by doing that Google search or emailing us at Dominate the 18 soccer training at gmail.com. And they could also message us, on one of those platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and we'd be happy to get back to them right away.
Excellent, excellent. Make sure you catch Coach Bob's presentation and make sure you are following all our social media handles and keep in touch with the Alliance. So, Coach Bob, thank you very much for joining us today. We will look forward to your presentation.
All right. Thank you.